Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I think this is episode 49 now. I am
Yes,
Matthew.
believe so.
Yeah, I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey brother, great to see you. So today, we haven't done a Disney podcast in over a week, so we're back now with our Disney Part 5. We're officially a third through this series that, as you said in the previous episodes, man, it does feel like it's been going on for a while, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
I mean, yeah, I only realized today that we were one third through, which is not much progress whatsoever.
We're getting there, man. We're getting there. In today's episode, we have some pretty iconic films, I would say, um, in a similar vein to the last episode. So I'm just going to pass over to my best pal here, and he's going to explain what movies we're going to be talking about today. So Callum, off to you, buddy.
Well, just for a quick channel update.
Oh
Uh, you
yes,
know, we
sure.
we've been a bit minimal on content for the last week or so, but that's just because we've been planning an absolute onslaught of content
Absolute
coming up this week.
bangers,
You
man.
know, uh,
Absolute bangers.
we're quickly approaching the 50th episode of our podcast, and we're planning something special. I would say. I mean, Matthew doesn't really know, quite honestly. I've been
You've been
I
keeping it
plan on
hidden.
just attacking him with
I
questions
can't wait.
that
Can't wait.
he has no knowledge about. So you'll get a bit of insight into the movie, mates. A bit of storytelling from the both of us. And we'll be having our first guest on the show. The episode after our 50th episode releases. To talk about the widely considered best cinematic masterpiece of all time, The Kissing Booth,
Absolutely,
and then
absolutely.
and then and then hopefully we'll have the same guest on for the sequel, which we'll be discussing hopefully the next day after that. And that I'm really looking forward to that. But for today, we'll be talking about 101 Dalmatians, The Sword and the Stone, The Jungle Book, and The Aristocats. Uh,
Mhm.
I would say there were two films that I was looking forward to in here: 101 Dalmatians and The Sword and the Stone. And I was surprised by which ones I enjoyed and which ones I didn't. I'll just say that.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this one, and yeah, like I was pretty much the same. 101 Dalmatians and actually Jungle Book for me, I was looking forward to. But Sword in the Stone sounded interesting as well, and I actually didn't know much about the Aristocats, so I was glad to check these off the bucket list for the most part. For the most part, but yeah, as Callum said, so this week will probably be a very hopefully productive week in the Movie Mates podcast or the Movie Mates channel rather. I think we're going to be uploading quite a lot this week, so I will so. And yeah, as the day this is recorded, this is the 20th of July. This will be up by the 21st, early hours of the morning. So all the Americans out there, it's coming to you guys first. But yeah, just before we crack on with today's episode, guys, thank you so much for everyone who has liked, commented, subscribed, shared, all that good stuff. And yeah, if you've got any last minute questions or anything for the 50th podcast, we're recording this. We're recording that on the 21st. So please leave your comments in the comment section down below or email us at moviemeetspodcast@gmail.com. Callum or myself will be there to answer those. And yeah, full spoilers ahead for these four films as usual. And yeah, Callum, off to you, mate, if you want to crack on with 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah, so obviously, so sometimes we talk a little bit about context of the films that we're discussing, but I don't think that really feels necessary for today for the most part.
Mhm.
So we can sort of just crack on with the narrative of the film.
Awesome, man.
And the film opens, and I was sort of taken aback because it sort of did seem like, once again, Disney Animation sort of had a descent in quality, film to film. The last film that we discussed from Disney was Sleeping Beauty, which I think was probably the pinnacle of the Disney filmography to that point.
Sure.
And then sort of the animation in this film appears very simplistic. It sort of looks more like a painting rather than a film. In a lot of shots, it is very simple, and I really appreciate it, but I don't know that it was intentional.
That's such a great point, Callum. You know what? I'd have to agree, and that point is actually more prevalent in my sort of comments about the Aristocats. But in this film, yeah, I'd have to agree. It's very simplistic, but I suppose with the sort of the narrative of the film, what's constructed, and also like the characters, I suppose it's a good mix because this film is very. I suppose if I could describe it in like a couple of words, it probably like sweet and very charming. There's a lot of great humor in here, and it's quite it's not the most colorful Disney film we've seen, but it certainly stands out. You know, Dalmatians are obviously very very well considered dogs in the sense from a aesthetic perspective. You know, they're very nice to look at, and I think this carries over here. You know, the Dalmatians look incredible, especially when all 101 of them are accommodated by the end. So it provides a fantastic visual, and you hear a lot about this film, you know, especially like the live action renditions as well. And there's a lot about this film that surprised me, especially regarding Cruella de Vil, who we'll discuss later. But yeah, for all accounts, man, just open remarks, I had an absolute blast with this one. And what about you, man? Did you enjoy it, or where does it sit? Because I suppose, and I'll stop this little onslaught right now. It is quite similar to Lady and the Tramp.
Yes, we will sort of talk about other parallels to, you know, I think that this is probably the least original run of Disney films that we've discussed, because, you know, I feel like, you know, it you know, this and especially the Aristocats just heavily borrow from previous Disney projects. So, you know, I really did enjoy the film, but I do agree that it sort of it was lacking in originality somewhat. But you know, you spoke about the Dalmatians, and I just have to say that Pongo is the best wingman that I've ever seen, because he puts Roger's
Absolutely.
relationship happiness above his own, and you know, he just, you know, coincidentally gets a girlfriend off of the back of you know, introducing Roger to his wife.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that was actually one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite scene in the film, because it's sort of it's a very romantic scene, and obviously Pongo, fantastic wingman, and he meets Perdita there as well. And it's kind of a very sweet scene as well, because you sort of think that 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 Roger and I actually forget his wife's name, but you sort of
Is
think
it
they.
is it Anita or something?
Let's go with it. Let's go with it. I think so. So let's roll with it. So let's say, yeah, Roger and Anita. You know, you sort of think maybe they won't get along, but they actually do, and they're perfect for each other. So I kind of really like that as well. And obviously, Roger's Cruella de Vil song is an absolute banger.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, within the universe, he releases it like as a single, and I don't know that, you know, just saying someone's name over and over in sort of like a spooky tone would have, you know, really
Cruella
gripped
de
the attention of a
Vil.
nation.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose there's Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, which obviously took the world by storm. So I mean, you know, maybe just
Okay.
saying a woman's name repeatedly, you know, does create a banger. But you know, obviously, you said a little bit about the romance, and with romance comes babies. And you know,
Always.
per, yes, Perdita, you know, produces 15 children, but we're told that one accidentally, you know, died post birth, but is actually revived by Roger. You know, he's a bloody hero. But you know
Absolutely.
what I've never seen is someone do CPR as though they're doing like a set as a DJ. You know,
That's what I
like
put as
this
well.
vibe.
Somehow rubbing the puppy brings it back to life. You're a qualified first aid guy yourself, Callum. That's not how it's done.
Well, you know, we didn't really cover like, you know, obviously like CPR like with adults and babies is quite different, and I would imagine sort of, you
Sure.
know, a small baby would have, you know, probably a similar size of a heart as a puppy, maybe, you know,
Mhm.
they'd probably be a similar size, like a
Yeah,
small
you'd
baby
think
and
so. Yeah,
a puppy would probably be a similar size at birth.
you'd think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so but I still don't think doing, you know, the DJ slider, you know, would have helped.
Cruella de Vil. That's my DJ Raj, DJ Roger. Um,
Nice.
yeah, but on the subject of like the puppies, I think they're so cute. And one thing I love about them is you can really get a sense of each puppy's personality. And sort of we mentioned it in Lady and the Tramp, how by the end of it it was lazy animation when the female puppies look exactly like what's her name in Lady? Lady, sorry, I was trying to say like exactly like Lady, and the male puppies look exactly like Tramp. But in this scene, in this film, all the puppies look different. We see some have like black spots in their eyes, some of them have black ears. So in that instance, the animation wasn't as lazy in animating them all the same. And you know, you hear a lot about like these things where you would expect in this film all the Dalmatians to look the same, in a similar sense to, like, you know, people see zebras, people think zebras are all the same, but all the zebras have different stripes. So in this instance, it is refreshing to see that animation. And yeah, like I said, you can definitely get a sense of each puppy's personality. You know, you've got the one who likes food, you've got the one who likes the TV. You know, that I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it did make me think about the fact that, you know, and this may sound bad, if I were a dad of, say, triplets even, I will not be able to tell them apart. I'm 100% confident. You know, I just don't have the thing in my brain to discern between you know, identical people. You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, also, I've sort of talked about this, and it's sort of hard to put into words. But you know, say you have twins and you attribute a name to them, like, you know, what, like, you know, you've said I've had two kids. You know, one of them is named this name, one of them is, you know, named this name. At what point did they become that person? Because surely, you know, if you just keep switching them up and mixing them up, it doesn't really matter until they, like, you know, say go to school or something. Because then that's when, you know, when they need a legal identity. You know,
It's a good point.
until
Yeah.
that point, you know, I mean, that's hard to put into words, but you know, I don't even know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. You know,
Uh,
some people, do you know Randall from the Sidemen? Well, he's not in the Sidemen,
yeah,
but do you know what I mean? Yeah, like I was listening to his podcast, and he said he wasn't given a name until 2 weeks after birth, which I suppose is sort of a similar thing to what you're saying in an instance where there's no real need to name them until you find the need to name them to distinguish them. I think is what you're saying, is it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, yeah, pretty much. You know, because you know, if I was just like carting like twins about, I'd just say like
Twin
these
one, twin
are,
two. Yeah,
let's say, you know, I'd say these are Matthew and Callum, but like I'm not going to say this is Callum, this is Matthew, because you
yeah,
know
yeah,
that, like, it just
exactly.
seems arbitrary because you're
Yeah,
almost definitely going to mix them up unless you
yeah.
tattoo them,
It's a good
which
point. Yeah.
which you shouldn't do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, we've sort of mentioned like Cruella de Vil, and, I wanted to ask, what is she smoking? Like, it's some sort of like green,
Yeah,
like,
no, I had
puff.
that exact thought, but I mean, you know, let's be optimistic. Let's say it's some sort of like green tea
Green
blend.
tea.
You know,
Yes,
but I
exactly.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
like I would say weed, but obviously, you know, like weed smoke isn't green. So yeah, it's, you know, like it's, you know, it's not, it's presumably not anything sus. You know, it's like
Yeah.
just something with green smoke, obviously, to create the ominous image of that. But you know, yeah, I don't think there's a logical answer. But you know, we can sort of talk about the moral implications of her decisions.
Mhm.
You know, in the film, because you know her evil plot is obviously to steal the puppies and to, you know, skin them to make fur coats.
Dark.
And you know, this film sort of, you know, made me consider the implications of buying puppies rather than, you know, adopting ones that, you know, are already have already been taken from their homes. Because you know, this film really, you know, makes you see through the eyes of the parents that, you know,
Oh
to
yeah,
have
big
your
time.
puppies taken away
Absolutely.
is
It's a
to
great
have your family stolen from you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, Calm. That's such a fantastic point you've smashed there. And like her plan is really dark, man, when you think about it. And you know, it's sort of she goes a long way just to get like a fur coat, like just get a fake one, just get whatever. And this film is like you could, yeah, as you said perfectly, Calm. It is told from for a large majority of it of the parents' perspective. Both from I suppose Roger and Anita, and also from Pongo and Perdita, you sort of see both sort of both views there. And yeah, like man, that must be heartbreaking. I have a sort of similar point to this in the Aristocats, but it must be heartbreaking for a owner of a pet, or a father or mother, to have your child go missing. And this sort of film that sort of embarks on that as well. And it is very dark actually for a kids film when you think about it.
Yeah, and not only dark, but it's also funny because there is perhaps one of the greatest lines in film history from Jasper the Dog Napper, where he says that he has the knob for the job, and I think that I've only heard that from you know, male prostitutes.
Oh man, that's a classic knob for the job. Speaking of iconic
Like,
film.
what does that even like?
Yeah,
What does he mean?
no, no. He's got the knob for the job, come on. But yeah, no.
Like,
Speaking
is
of,
that like the polite way of saying, like, you know, I've got the balls, I've got the cojones, like, to get this done?
I
Like, is
suppose so, but it's like a 1961 version.
Yeah, I guess, you know, words obviously like change meanings, and you know, currently that means dick. But it may have it may have meant something else. You know, 60
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah. But speaking of iconic film lines, I recently started watching The Truman Show with Jim Carrey. I don't know if you've seen it, man, but I actually didn't realize like the iconic film line where it's like good morning, good evening, and good night is from that movie. So I think I'm gonna end today's podcast with that. I've a wee feeling I might do that. Have you seen The Truman Show, man?
I haven't. You know, I'm obviously aware of what the film's about, but I don't actually think that I was aware of that line either. Of its existence even. But yeah, it's a nice sign off. So yeah, if you do want to cap the podcast off with that, you have my full support.
Awesome, man.
Yes. So, in your opinion, we talked about Maleficent last week, with Sleeping Beauty, and we sort of both agreed that she was, pretty much the epitome of a Disney film,
Absolutely.
of a Disney villain up until that point. And how do you think that Cruella ranks amongst that and her plan?
I'd heard a lot about Cruella de Vil from different like members of my family and stuff because who've watched this film and they say like, oh, I love Cruella de Vil and stuff like that. And I thought she was actually really good. She's got a really freaky look about her as well. She's sort of like really thin, but also like really scary looking. She's sort of got a similar look to the villain of The Emperor's New Groove. I can't remember what her name is in that, but she looks very similar to her. And no, I thought that
Yzma.
Yzma, that's it, yeah, Yzma. And yeah, she looks exactly like her. And also in this film, she got very, like, as you said, buddy, she's got very extravagant look about her, and like the fur coat and the flashy car and the expensive castle. It's a very clear sort of villain archetype there. And I thought she was fantastic. Although one thing I do have in here towards the end is that she's not really in it a lot. It's more of her goons that do the villain stuff.
Yeah, she's not in it a lot, and also there's no justice in the end. She's just left by the side of the road with her plan not, going to completion. But she doesn't actually
Yeah,
receive any
good point.
comeuppance. She doesn't. I mean, I don't actually know whether her plan was illegal. What is dog napping a crime? I'm actually not sure.
Yeah,
I
especially
suppose
in those
because
days, you never know. Probably not in those days,
yeah.
actually.
I mean, obviously, if you take a child, that's a separate crime. But maybe because you purchase a dog, that just comes under stealing.
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
theft. So it was presumably a crime of some sort. So she deserved to be, locked up for whatever reason. Even if it was just
Absolutely.
in sort of a mental hospital, which
Mm.
is what happens in 101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close. She's her unwielding desire for
Mm.
furs is obviously diagnosable.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man, absolutely. And one thing about this, what this film, like, it is like we said, it's not really Cruella's not in this a lot, and it is like you said with the iconic line "knob for the job." It's mostly her two goons that do the work for her, and I thought they were actually pretty funny in the film. I think they're proper like Cockney geezers, like they're proper like hard lads, and no, I thought they were quite funny, like.
Yeah, like some of these accents were the first convincing British accents I've ever heard in a Disney film. Like I would
Yeah.
say Pongo is probably amongst the only British accents that are somewhat convincing, and we will talk about that a lot during I assume the Sword and the Stone because they're
Yeah.
absolute trash.
He sounds a bit like C3PO, I think, Pongo, a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it is very, classical like Queen's English, British accent, and I don't actually know whether the voice actor was British. Based on Disney's, previous decisions and decisions after this, I'm gonna have to say probably not.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think he does the job well.
Absolutely, man,
And
absolutely.
you know, to be honest, I didn't really have many expectations of this film, but I did expect a little bit more depth than just 50% of it to be like an extended chase sequence.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, man. The film is very fast paced for a Disney film, to be honest. And we've talked before, Snow White, Cinderella, all that good stuff, about the middle section being very dry and bland, and nothing much happens in it. Whereas this film, it is, a lot of it is just a chase sequence, to be honest with you, buddy, or slapstick, which sort of mixed with a chase sequence, mixed with an escape scene. There's a lot of that, and yeah, there's a lot of weird scenes in this one as well. There's I don't know if you find this strange, but when the cows offer the puppies some milk, they offer as
Yeah,
in it's
yeah,
from their own udders. So that was alarming.
yeah. I mean, obviously we drink cow's milk, but it's been you don't suck it from the udder.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, there was some cross species stuff that yeah made me a bit squirmy.
It did, man. That's a great way of putting it, buddy. It's a great way of putting it. Um, this is probably going to be my shortest review ever because I've got really nothing else to say about this.
Me neither. Nothing whatsoever.
Man, well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to hear your rating for this one because although we haven't said much about it, I suppose that we haven't criticized a lot either. So there's not much happens in it really.
Yeah, exactly. It is a strong trend throughout the movie mates where our longest reviews are the ones that we're taking the piss out of, which you will see soon in our I don't know how it came out edited, but like was it like about 90 minutes long kissing booth
95,
review?
about 94, 95, yeah.
I mean that's just ridiculous.
It's classic. It's a classic,
I mean, there was a lot of getting to know our guest, but aside from that, there's no reason why a review for the kissing booth needed to be 95 minutes long. I mean, aside from the fact that we're just constantly taking the piss out of it.
Yeah, that's where we have the most fun as well. Like we do like to have a good laugh here in the show. So yeah, expect a few giggles with us too and our friend Cash very soon. We think you'll like that one.
Yes. So to rate the film, I think it's really fun. I got the sense of the family friendliness of it. Especially as you said, through most of the film is through the eyes of a parental figure. Looking for their child or for their lost dog.
Yeah.
So I think it really appeals to all people. The music in it is incredibly minimal, but what's there is great. Cruella de Vil is a great villain. She has probably one of the most fucked plans in Disney history.
Absolutely. That's a good
Because
way of putting it, man.
she's not,
Absolutely.
coming after one person. She plans to she plans to slaughter 101 puppies. Or well, not 99 puppies. So she's clearly a horrific person. But my one issue is that the ending made me feel a bit unsatisfied. There was no justice really.
I respect
Which
that.
I mean, obviously we've often talked about the fact that obviously in reality there often isn't justice for crimes. But sort of when you're watching a kids film, you want to sort of have the you're already suspending believability for the fact that there's talking dogs. So you sort of want to be at least satisfied by the
Absolutely,
hero
Callum.
tries, the villain fails.
Mhm.
But aside from that, I loved everything else in this film. So I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Awesome, buddy. I thought that was a fantastic review, Callum. And yeah, for me, I had a great time with this. I really like the romance built between Roger and Anita, but also Pongo and Perdita. And yeah, I think this film's fantastic, as you said perfectly, buddy. Corella's fantastic villain and definitely one of the more fucked plans in our film reviews so far. But yeah, I think the ending for me, though it lacks the comeuppance for Cruella, I thought it was a very sweet and heartwarming ending that the family embrace all 99 puppies as well as Pongo and Perdita into their home by the end, which is nice. So I'd probably give it a 9.5. I had a fantastic time with this, to be honest, brother. So but yeah, I suppose we can move on to the next film, which I think is The Sword in the Stone, isn't it?
Yes. So this was probably the
Awesome.
film that I was looking forward to most because I knew that it was a huge departure from previous portrayals of the King Arthur storyline. But I
Mhm.
know I understand why. There are other films don't choose to focus on this part of his life because it's fucking dull.
It is. It is. I was reading the synopsis of this film before I turned it on last night, and it sort of made me believe that this film is, Merlin meets sort of like a Captain America meets Thor in the sense that magic, but also like a muscular guy, like a skinny guy who turns muscular. That's not even in the film, but also like the word being worthy of lifting a a magically enchanted weapon. So in that sense, it is quite similar to those three, but yeah, like it's this film is not what I expected at all, either from the synopsis or just the story of King Arthur. It's very is sanitized the right word? Is it? I don't know. Is
I
family
mean, if that's
family
how
friendly the right
you
word?
feel,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
I mean, I just did find it really unappealing, and because it's called The Sword in the Stone, and I've seen that iconic scene of him lifting the sword from the stone. I fully expected that to be the opening of the film, and then spend the entire film of him learning how to be a proper king, and then I thought it would end with him fighting like Morgana, which is the most famous villain like in like Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
And sort of this is a huge departure, as we said, from that lore, because I mean, no one's interested in seeing what he was like as a child, especially this sort of useless version of him. And yeah, I just really expected to enjoy it more, and I just felt nothing for it really.
Yeah, it is sad. Like that being said, I actually did really enjoy this one. It's just it wasn't what I was expecting. It's sort of it's less of a fantasy film for me, and it's more of like a coming of age story, which I suppose works in the family friendly sort of dynamic that Disney tries to present. But there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things I think there's a lot of problems with this film. But strangely, Callum, like we've talked about before, like the midsection of Disney being our least favorite. The midsection of this was actually my favorite. It's just the ending of it. And the beginning wasn't really for me at all. So and I'm looking forward to getting into why it wasn't particularly for your tastes, buddy.
Well, I would say, immediately, right from the start of the film, it was unappealing to me just because they present the future King of England, and he's American. And not only is he American, he
Yeah.
is voiced by three different people, and it switches out, like line by line. There are three different people voicing this character in the same scene. Like, did you notice this?
I didn't know it was three different people, but I definitely thought, this. Whoa, hold on a second. This character doesn't sound the same as he did 30 seconds ago. What was the deal with that? Do you know?
Like there seems to be literally no reason for it. I guess it's maybe just because they were child actors, so it was maybe labor law related. But they had two of the three voice actors were brothers, so that's why 2/3 of Arthur's lines sounds like kind of similar, which is maybe why you only really heard maybe two distinct voices,
Mhm.
because two of them were brothers and one was not related to them whatsoever. So that's why there are at least two wildly
That's
different
crazy.
voices within the film. But it seems really odd to me that they'd be like, yeah, we need to hire three kids. None of them are going to be English though.
Yeah, yeah. Like we've talked about this before with the castings of Superman with Henry Cavill and stuff, and before, and that for me it doesn't necessarily matter if that character is American, particularly even though he's quite an iconic American figure. As long as the actor gives a good performance, who am I to judge? But in this film, when it's a historical figure like Arthur was, even though he was a lot of him became unhistorical in the sense that a lot of it was exaggerated with the magic and all that.
Oh, Matthew, it's 100% fictional.
Arthur is.
Yeah.
I see. I had a wee look in on Wikipedia. I know that's not the most reliable source, but apparently he was a figure that did exist in England in the Saxon era. But he was just a lot of legend, a lot of folklore, followed
But
that.
like, was he ever king of England or anything?
I'm not sure if he was a king. I'll have a wee look here, buddy. But I mean, I'm not sure if he did it. If he was, it says he was a. He led the defense of Britain against Saxon invaders in the late 5th and 6th centuries, but it doesn't say he was king though, because yeah. So I don't know, but I'll look into that later. But yeah, I know what you mean. See, when you have like American actors, I think. Do you think it's inherent for this character? Like, do you think he needs to be English? Because I think when you say he's King of England, probably he does.
Yeah, no, obviously there's never an issue, with accents. If you want to have an American actor do an English accent, go right ahead. If they do a good English accent, who is anyone to judge? I guess you're obviously not giving opportunities to an English actor, but
Mm.
forge ahead,
Yeah,
I guess. If they have a good performance. But I mean, yeah, why would you present the one and future king
yeah,
of England,
with an American.
and they're just doing a blatant American accent. It's clearly just because they didn't have high expectations of child actors, because in 101 Dalmatians, the Aristocats, every Disney film that has children in it, who are not meant to be American, say in Aristocats they're meant to be French, but every character's doing an English accent aside from the children.
Yeah,
In 101 Dalmatians, everyone's meant to be English, but the kids are American. Clearly they didn't want to hire English actors, and they also didn't expect the child actors to do an English accent. But then I'm like, why are you even doing this?
yeah. That's a great point, Calum. It's a
Like,
great
just
point.
set it in America then. At
Yeah,
that point, like, if,
exactly.
if you want to go if you want to go international and you're making your adult American actors do English accents, and you're just having the American child actors be American, why not just set it in America?
Exactly. There's nothing about these films that particularly stands out. Oh, it must be American. It must be American. It doesn't really matter where you set them, to be honest, does it? Like aside from animated films like Ratatouille, where it's inherent that it's probably got to be France because of the sort of the aura behind Gusteau's restaurant. It's a classic traditional French restaurant. Ratatouille is a French dish, whatever. These films, it doesn't feel like it needs to be particularly American. It doesn't feel it need to be particularly English. So like, yeah, as you said perfectly, Callum, it doesn't really matter. Just why are we doing this at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And would you agree that this film, for the most part, is sort of, I mean, I would say that this film is, one of the least, like, I pictured this being, one of the most original Disney films that would have been made up to this point, because obviously it's based on Arthurian legend, but I thought they were really going to do something different. But really, to me, it just feels like the good parts of Fantasia. It still doesn't feel like anything new.
Yeah, in a similar sense to comparing to other Disney films, I sort of had in my notes that it's quite similar to Sleeping Beauty in the sense that Merlin does provide a lot of great humor here, much like the fairies do in Sleeping Beauty. But I think just like his whole concept of my magic is just for educational purposes is just bullshit, because it's just similar to the fairies in Sleeping Beauty who say, yeah, our magic can only do good things. It restricts it, but then it just goes against its own laws of restriction, because we see Merlin like transforms himself into a germ to fight Madame Mim. We see him transform himself into a fish and a squirrel, and I guess he's trying to teach Arthur lessons there, sure. But when he's doing the washing up for him by using his magic, what about that is educational?
I know, like he's just pissing about and doing like nothing helpful. Yeah, either he uses his
Holiday to
magic for
Bermuda.
for useless education, or to do something that is not educational whatsoever, but also doesn't really help anyone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he seems like a terrible teacher, because every time he's trying to teach Merlin, sorry, or Arthur, a quote unquote lesson, he just like washes his hands of it and is like, no, sort yourself out. Yeah, let this bestiality happen. Yeah, let the squirrel have sex with you. Just let it happen.
Is it bestiality though? Is having sex with an alien bestiality?
See, Matthew, that's a great reference. But if you're being serious in this film, it definitely is
It definitely
bestiality,
is. It
because
definitely
I
is.
mean, Merlin sort of goes against his actual he makes one statement that he then contradicts, because when they're fish, he says, oh well, you don't have the biological instinct to swim because I've just made you look like a fish. You're not actually a fish. But then why does he need to be in the water? So when he's a squirrel later, he I guess is just taken on the guise of a squirrel, but he's not actually biologically a squirrel. So he
It's a
doesn't have
great
any of
point.
he
Yeah.
doesn't have any of the sexual squirrel instincts
Yeah.
that this female squirrel does. But then Merlin's just like chuckling and like slapping his knee like this is a hilarious
Yeah.
situation. I'm like, this could go dark very quickly.
Absolutely. And that being said, I actually really felt bad for the female squirrel at the end. She seemed very sweet to Arthur, maybe a bit too sweet in many instances. But no, I kind of felt bad. I thought they were like maybe gonna turn her into a human or something, but that would have been weird, I suppose. But like
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought they were gonna do, and I would be like, well, no, she's taking on the guise of a human, so it's still bestiality.
exactly. Like the film. This is one of the weirdest films I think we reviewed probably since like the package film days. I think we've escaped the package films, haven't we?
Yeah, we have until Fantasia 2000.
Okay, so we've got a few more episodes then, I suppose. But it kind of reminded me of it's such a weird film, and like there's such the pacing is proper bad, to be honest, because the film introduces the main villain, really, Madame Mim, with 20 minutes to go, and she's built up as like Merlin's arch nemesis and stuff. Although that scene where Merlin and Mim go at it with their magic, maybe not go at it's probably not the right term. Whenever Merlin and Mim have a wee fight with their magic, that is pretty great. That is pretty good. Even visual wise, like it's cool to see them transform into different animals and stuff. But um, yeah, like it sort of goes against the whole rules of his magic. It's just educational, but then he decides to like turn into a goat and like push her off a cliff and stuff. It's so weird about that.
Yeah, and as you said, it is very similar to Sleeping Beauty in that the final battle involves someone turning into a purple dragon. But also I thought it was going to be like as you said, Madame Mim is revealed until very late in the film. But I also thought it was going to be a situation like What We Do in the Shadows, where a character refers to his ex-girlfriend, as the Beast. I thought when he was sort of having his battle with Madame Mim, I thought it was going to end with like, Arthur asking Merlin, oh, how do you know that woman? He was going to go, that's my bitch ex-wife.
Yeah,
I
it's the
thought there was going to be
ex-wife.
something like that,
Yeah.
because it seemed like, there's obviously a past there that we're not really privy to that information. So
Mhm.
I sort of wanted to dig into that backstory at least a little, because
Yeah, absolutely,
that
Cal.
is the
Absolutely,
absolute like
brother.
latest in the game you could possibly reveal
Oh
the
yeah.
main antagonist of your
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
If you're gonna have your antagonist revealed that late, don't have one.
Yeah, absolutely, Callum. I think you've smashed it there, dude. And one thing about this film that sort of reminded me of our past was when I think it's Ector. Uh,
Yeah, is
that's
it the
really
demerits?
yeah, and the demerits, exactly that. And it sort of brought me back to our days at school, didn't it? Five demerits. It's good times, man. We've told that story in a future
Yeah,
podcast going up. Actually, I think about it.
yeah. I mean, I've obviously had a demerit happen, but I've never had to clean I've never had to clean any dishes. But
Well, yeah. To be
as
fair, you've had to like prepare a steak for a HE teacher.
that's what I was gonna say. That as part of my prefect duties, I did have to just measure out meat. Which I thought was going to above and beyond the the sworn duty.
But yeah, like I'm just making that wee point in my notes there to mention that in the description. But yeah, like this film it's entirely weird, and I thought the ending. I think you might have mentioned this. It's a very anticlimactic ending, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly so, because I mean, that is, that's how you open a film. It's not how you
Hmm.
end a film.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
just seemed completely in the wrong place. Uh, you know, because I mean, if the film had opened with him, being secure in the knowledge that he is the future king of England, then then Merlin training him up makes sense. But like training him up intellectually to use his destiny to pull the sword of the stone makes no sense, because he was always destined to do that. He didn't need the education that Merlin chose to give him. So if
Such a
he had
great point. Yeah.
pulled the sword from the stone and then given combat training and then educational training, that would have made more sense. But it still wouldn't have been an interesting film.
Hmm.
They needed to go in a
Fair
completely
enough.
different
Yeah.
direction and have it be just a young Arthur in the position of old, like a younger Arthur, for the children to sort of see themselves in,
Hmm.
but in the
Sure.
position of like the adult Arthur from the legends.
That's such a great point, dude. Yeah, absolutely. And I really wish that in the ending of the film, like it would have been hilarious if Arthur picks up the sword and like decapitates Hector and Kay, just like as a brutal sort of side note there, because they treat him really badly, don't they? I know they're not even blood related, so they're not really his family. They employ him as a servant, really, which is brutal in itself. And the opening line of the film is quite brutal enough. He's like, "My name's Arthur, but everyone calls me Wart," and I was like, "Per kid, per kid."
Yeah, that is grim. But yeah, I mean, the film pretty much just says the fact that, like, if you want a free servant, call them a foster child. That's pretty
Pretty
much
much. Pretty much.
actors ethos in life.
Mm.
To get unpaid help.
Mm.
He says I've taken the boy in. I feel like his father, and then he's like, wash my dishes, bitch.
Yeah, five demerits. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a weird one, but yeah, like it's in a similar sense to 101 Dalmatians, Callum. I don't have anything else to say about this
Me neither, Matthew. So I'd love to hear your rating of the film.
So I think I had a better time than this than you did.
Matthew, by the
Just
way, I
slightly.
have even less for Jungle Book.
Brilliant, brilliant. I've got a little bit to say about Jungle Book, so hopefully I'll be a good one. So I'd probably give this film. I love the scenes where they turn into squirrels and fish. I think that's really fantastic. And I felt bad for the female squirrel. I just got to put that out there. She seems sweet. And so for me, I think the action in this, I say action, the animated action in this film is pretty great. Merlin, it provides some great moments of levity and humor there. But yeah, like the poor pacing and stuff, I'd probably give it an 8. I had a good time with this, but a very different film to what I was originally expecting, but decent nonetheless. What about you, brother? What would you give it?
Yeah, obviously I have to praise, the music and the animation. But pretty much everything, regardless of that, I had some level of disdain for.
Hmm.
I really love the iconic sequence of him pulling the sword from the stone. Well, I mean, technically, it's a sword from an anvil, but we'll pass.
Yeah,
We'll go
we'll
past
let it
that. It's
slide.
fine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take. That's not a climactic ending to a film. And Merlin's just bizarre. The sequences of them turning into fish and squirrels. I know you enjoyed that, but I was like, what is any of this?
Yeah, no, fair, fair,
Like
man.
I think
Respect that. I
there's a
respect that.
trend in Disney films where there's like one 20-minute sequence where you're like, why is this in the film?
Hmm. Yeah.
And it usually appears in the middle of the film, and we're like, what? Like, well, I mean, there is a reason. They wanted to like bill it as a feature film so that they can make as much money as possible. But I mean, you're also spending money to animate that and pay animators. So I
Mhm.
mean, just cut what people won't enjoy. But especially the squirrel sequence, I was like, what questions is this meant? Like, what questions
Yeah.
does this film want us to ask ourselves?
No,
Because
100%,
they
man.
they obviously weren't thinking bestiality and putting it in a kids film. That's obviously us drawing that. Well, I mean, it's very explicit. Let's be honest.
It is. It is.
Uh,
It is. Yeah. And
but I did not love the film. But I
I
have
respect that,
to
man.
praise its quality. So I will give it a 6 out of 10.
Fair enough, man. I think you made some fantastic points in there, Callum, as always. And we've talked about these films before, the runtime. I think we had mentioned it in Bambi as well. These films could, like, a lot of them are hour and 20. I think every film today is about hour 19 and hour 20-ish. A lot of these could be 50 minutes, or at least sub 1 hour. You'd like to
Easily.
think easily, man, easily. And maybe it's just, I don't know if it's a coincidence that all these films are like 1 hour 20. Like for the last few films we've watched now, all of them are like 80 minutes long. So I wonder if it's maybe a studio requirement that that's the maximum time or minimum time they have to reach. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like a lot of could be cut out of these films.
Yeah, definitely. And one film in which I don't think that is the case would be Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Jungle Book, which
Hmm.
we'll talk about next. Because whilst I didn't enjoy a lot of the film, I didn't enjoy every sequence in the film. I think that pretty much every sequence is necessary to building the story of the film.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more iconic films I think that we've talked about in recent episodes, and yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this film, absolutely, and it's got so much, it's got such a great world in there in the sense that all the characters are pretty much fantastic. But it does fall to the same trap as Sword in the Stone in that the villain is shown 15 minutes to go. He's mentioned, but he's barely in it. He's not really in it at all. Really, he's been for like 5 minutes, but 10 minutes.
I mean, I suppose they think that's, tension building to just, have
Yeah.
sort of whispers about how horrific he is and then show him. But I mean, and whereas, the Sword in the Stone just, I mean, it barely says the villain's name, let alone mentions her,
Yeah, no, that's
like,
fair. Yeah,
before she appears. But yeah, in this film, I do think this is a great improvement upon the Sword in the Stone.
absolutely. No,
So
definitely, man, definitely.
it, it was a happy surprise that I enjoyed it at all because I had very low expectations. But, this is a rare instance where there is actually no decline in the animation. Film to film, like I would say that this is actually an improvement from the Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, the animation's fantastic here, and one thing about this film I think it does really, really well is the subversion of animal stereotypes. So, the panthers and bears are usually villains or are presented as a scary, villainous manner. But in this film here, Bagheera and Baloo are the good guys, and they're, bears and panthers. From most children's perspective, I would say very scary animals. Like if I saw a bear in the street the size of Baloo, I'd be scared. Likewise, if I saw like a Black Panther like Bagheera, I'd also be scared. But the fact that the film subverts that, and even Bagheera, he does have quite a freaky look about him. Like he has a very like scary design, I would argue. But they're both very lovable characters. And even with Shere Khan, the tiger, he doesn't exactly look that menacing. Like he just looks like from the tiger on Frosties, Tony the Tiger. To be honest with you, man, like he doesn't look that menacing. Whereas I think this
Yeah,
version of this animation there is so good, so good.
but I don't think he has a menacing presence either. He doesn't seem ominous enough to carry the film as its main antagonist.
It's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, man, absolutely. And one thing I'd mention about this film, it is very similar to like the story of Tarzan, isn't it, in many respects? And I don't mind that because the 1999 Tarzan is, I think I've said this before in the show, like it's my favorite Disney film. So I love this film for that. It's a very similar story, but I think it works.
Which would you say that is? Which would you say is better?
I would say the 1999 Tarzan is better, but this film, I think, just probably it's just because of the era it was released. It defined sort of that sort of story, and obviously based in the book and stuff. And I'd read that that the book was a lot darker, and Disney sort of had to fix things and sort of manipulate it to have more of a family friendly vibe.
Yeah, and but oddly, they actually made a villain out of an original hero because originally, Kaa the snake is actually, one of Mowgli's teachers, on the level of Bagheera and Baloo. So they actually made that character an antagonist,
Hmm.
which sort of goes against their family friendly ethos. Because I think that if you sort of took Kaa out of the film or made Kaa a smaller part that was actually, like a protagonist, I think that would have left more time to develop Shere Khan as a villain.
Absolutely, Callum. Absolutely, and I think since you mentioned the voice actor who plays Winnie the Pooh being in these Disney films, like I noticed that he's also Kaa the Python as well, and I think he's
Yeah,
also the mouse in Aristocats. So it's very noticeable.
yeah, he is.
He's a very distinguishable voice about him, and I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite voice actors. Honestly, I think it's just his tone. Obviously a monotone voice akin to my own. Many people say that I have the voice that will put them to sleep, and
I
that's sort
like
of
your
the
voice. I
you
like it.
know well thank you, sir. But that's I think that's sort of the vibe that the Sterling Holloway is going for. I wonder whether that's him doing a voice or whether that's just how he always spoke.
It's an interesting one, man. Like he's a very distinguishable voice, like we mentioned, and like yeah, I don't know. It's sort of it's a good mix of it sounds natural but also sounds unnatural at the same time.
Yeah, indeed. And to go back to the narrative of the film, a lot of it revolves around the fact that they intend to bring Mowgli to the manned village, but he is fully against that, and he wants to stay in the jungle. But he says that I would rather stay in the jungle alone than move to the village populated by people. But that just doesn't really ring true to me because where is the appeal in that? Because he's sort of lived with wolves his entire life, who are pack animals. So I really don't see where there would be any appeal in being alone, just in the place that you want to be.
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, buddy, because Bagheera says to Mowgli like, "You wouldn't survive the night if you were alone." And I thought, he survived a good number of years in the jungle with just wolves. I think he'd be okay if he just lived on his own or just stayed in the jungle with them. So yeah, like the appeal for like the human civilization. Yeah, no, I agree with you, man, completely.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously see the fact that everyone seems to be desperate to be his friend. He's the talk of the jungle. He's the favorite guy that everybody wants to hang out with. But he doesn't really realize that. So he is pretty satisfied in the idea that he will be alone and he's comfortable with it. And it just doesn't seem like that would be in anyone's nature. Especially someone raised as part of a pack.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, it kind of got me thinking when he does end up going to the human world at the end of the film. Like, I assume, and I know this is thinking way too deep into this film, but I assume because the wolves like brought him up and stuff, he can communicate with all of the animal kingdom. So he'd have to learn English, I would suppose, even though he's speaking English to the animals. I assume that's not actually English. It's just that's it translated on screen for us. It's just how animals speak together. I assume is what the film's trying to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's because we don't sort of see any human animal interaction in this film, because obviously in films like 101 Dalmatians and Aristocats, they're speaking English. We're seeing them speak English, but obviously the humans don't understand them. But
Mhm.
because there's obviously no human animal interaction in this film whatsoever, we don't actually know whether he's speaking human English or a translated animal English.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a weird thought to have, but no, I think I actually really like Mowgli, to be honest. His hair is brilliant. It's like the definitive bowl cut, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, is that sort of what you want to go for?
Yeah,
In the
absolutely,
end.
absolutely. Why do you think I'm wearing a hairband to keep it back? It's not what I
Oh
want.
yeah, in the Mowgli. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of like the Karen cut.
Karen, yeah, it's like a little bit sticking up at the back there, but it's so obviously like straightened for a cut at a fringe.
Yeah, I mean, how's that happening in the jungle? Obviously, Tarzan had his free flowing locks. So I mean, I guess there's just a jungle salon. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talked about the music throughout the last two films, and I often find the music up until this point very unnoteworthy. People sort of talk about big musical numbers in Mulan, Lion King, Aladdin, and I don't think that we've reached that sort of Disney Renaissance yet. So
Mhm.
to I would say the first song that I've ever found like tolerable in these Disney films is the Bare Necessities. It's the closest I've come to enjoying a song in these films.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is, and yeah, like it's so iconic as well. Like I think it's probably one of the more iconic Disney songs. To be honest with you as well, and it's fantastic. And the Baloo character, it's strange. Like I was a bit like ignorant towards this film because I always thought Baloo was sort of adopted the Bagheera role from the start of the film. Like I thought it was Boo who sort of Boo. I thought it was Baloo who sort of raised him and was his lifelong friend. But it really in this film he only meets Baloo sort of at the end of his journey in the jungle. So I thought that was really interesting and sort of a hot take here. I actually really prefer Bagheera to Baloo. To be honest, I think he's a much more compelling character and much more. I think he understands what's best for Mowgli.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I had some huge misconceptions about the films that we were talking about today, especially this film. I had the exact same thought, but yeah, I definitely agree with you that he has sort of been this figure that has looked out for him his entire life. But I suppose I don't know why he didn't just raise Mowgli himself. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose just because he didn't have the maternal instincts that he knew the wolf mother would have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that he's a more paternal figure than Baloo, and I
Yeah,
don't
me
think he
too.
gets enough credit.
Yeah, one thing about Baloo, I had hit in my notes here. Like, I can definitely see why they cast Bill Murray as the voice of Baloo later on in the live action rendition because the voice actor actually sounds remarkably similar, I think, to Bill Murray.
Yeah, I do think that Bill Murray is probably the best 21st century choice that they could have got.
Yeah.
In Mowgli: Legend of the Jungle, which was directed by Andy Serkis, he played the role himself, and I also think that's a great casting choice. But I do think that you can't really do better than Bill Murray in that role.
Yeah, Bill Murray's fantastic, and yeah, like as you said, Body really Bare Necessities is fantastic, and I think a lot of the film does come with the charisma between Mowgli, Baloo, and Bagheera, and but yeah, even the names in this film, the names are terrific as well. Like Baloo and Bagheera sound great, and like when they rescue Mowgli from King Louie the orangutan, I thought that was really 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 well done. It's such a great scene, and like there's such a lot of comedy from sort of side characters who are developed actually so well for the amount of little screen time we'll get. And I'll actually get onto the vultures later on. But I had a great time here with these characters.
Yeah, I don't have much to say more than right at the very end. So just go ahead with whatever else you have to say.
Well, just on the subject of oh yeah, the animal subversion that we had sort of mentioned at the start of the film. I just love how that continues with the vultures. Like usually in these sort of films, especially these animated pictures, the vultures or like birds of prey are usually seen as the villains of these films. We've sort of seen that in The Good Dinosaur with the pterodactyls. They are very menacing creatures in that film. They're the villains. But in this film, the Beatles influenced vultures. They're very they're very sweet. They're very kind. And we love the Beatles, so it was a great wee nod there.
Yeah, my only upsetting moment was looking up who had voiced them, and it wasn't the Beatles themselves.
I know.
I wish they'd
I
just gone
know.
that one step further. But yeah, I did love those characters. Was there anything else that you had to say before sort of the final showdown?
No, nothing for me, buddy. You crack on, dude. You crack on.
Okay, so Shere Khan is finally going after Mowgli. He's finally going to succeed, and I suppose his intention was to kill him, to eat him.
Hmm.
But Baloo obviously intervenes before that can happen, and is seemingly killed. But maybe just double check to make sure he's dead. Like Bagheera just pisses off, like, and he sort of respects the act of bravery from Baloo, and says that that this moment will forever be remembered. And then when Baloo announces that he's actually still alive, Bagheera seems pissed off, as though he didn't still commit an act of bravery.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, um, That's a great point. And we've sort of talked about Shere Khan. He's not the most menacing villain, but one thing I think is fantastic is the voice work there. Like it's such a deep, like menacing, like I am Shere Khan sort of voice. It's so good. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, it is sort of in the vein of like Scar and the Lion King, played by Jeremy Irons. It is of
Hmm.
that vein. So yeah, the voice work is great. But but Baloo didn't know that he wasn't gonna die.
Yeah.
He probably went in thinking,
Yeah.
I'm gonna die protecting Mowgli, and then like Bagheera is just like, oh, for fuck's sake, he didn't die.
Yeah.
Get
Shit.
over
Damn
yourself.
it. Yeah. I know. I know. Did you think they were gonna kill him off? I would have respected it if they did.
Yeah, I would have respected it more. I knew that, obviously there's a sequel to this film that was released in the early 2000s, which we'll discuss when we're talking about Disney Toon animation studios. But I don't actually know what the content of that film is, but it must be Mowgli returning from the human village. But I would have really respected had they killed Baloo off, but I was very confident that he was still alive.
Yeah, it's a great discussion. That's a great discussion, and I don't have anything else to say apart from just other than the blue ex machina that occurs at the end of the film. But
Lovely,
nothing
yes.
else from me, buddy.
Well, sort of, just to discuss the very ending of the film.
Go for it,
Mowgli
bro.
encounters this woman collecting water from the human village,
Yes,
and
yes.
it does seem very human to see a pretty lady and then abandon all your plans. How like
We've all been
you
there.
you would on a night how you would on a night out with mates.
Yeah,
But
we've all been there.
he doesn't just like abandon like he doesn't just like leave his mates for one day. Like he's planning on
He's like,
abandoning his whole life.
yeah, he's just like, the urge is stronger, I suppose, to visit the human world. So yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, this whole film has been about his desperate desire to stay in the jungle, and how he will, fight anyone and go through all of the elements to prevent being taken away. And they actually defeat Shere Khan, who was his only, adversary. Everybody else loves him. The only issue he was ever going to have in his life was, battling Shere Khan, which has already happened. So he has literally nothing to worry about living in the jungle. So it sort of seems that the whole journey of the film is made redundant by the fact that he just decides to refute living in the jungle anyway.
I do get what you're saying, buddy. I thought the encounter between Mowgli and that like little girl was quite sweet, quite heartwarming. But I would have preferred an ending where maybe the human village and the animal world sort of come together, so it's like a best of both worlds sort of scenario. But yeah, I know what you mean. It sort of juxtaposes everything that Mowgli was really fighting for throughout the film, wasn't it, man?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I felt a bit cheated because I knew that I didn't really know much about the events of the film, but I did know that that was how it was going to end. So it didn't surprise me, but it did somewhat disappoint me.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I respect that completely. And have we got any other remarks, buddy?
No, so I'd love to hear your rating of the film, Matthew.
Yeah, man. So I had a fantastic time with this, much better than I was expecting. I just put it on this morning. This afternoon I didn't get up till late, but I put it on this afternoon. It was a pleasant surprise, man. To be honest with you, it was great. I think that the characters are fantastic. It subverted my expectations completely in the character designs, the animation, and like you said, this is a definite improvement in trajectory there of the animation. It's stunning. So I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10, man. Really, really smashing. Yeah. What about yourself, bro?
Nice. Yeah, so I agree. The animation was an improvement. This is the only time I've ever enjoyed any music in a Disney film. Up to this point, there are future Disney films that I've enjoyed the music in, say Tangled.
Yeah.
Up until this point, I hadn't enjoyed any music within it. But I questioned some of the character decisions. I thought it was an anticlimactic ending that sort of went against the entire journey of the film. So I didn't have a great time, but I didn't have a bad time. So I thought it was dull in part. I have to respect the artistry and the quality of the music. So I would give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Awesome, man. I thought you made some fantastic points in there, Callum. And I suppose did you want to move on to our fourth and final film of today then? Yeah.
Yes, and would you say that your notes for this are also minimalistic?
Yeah. uh, this is such a nothing film. I really didn't like this one at all.
Oh, really? Because I
Yeah.
I think that it's exceptionally similar to sort of I compared it to 101 Dalmatians and The Lady and the Tramp, because
Yeah,
I think
very
sort of
similar.
with The Lady and the Tramp, it's this privileged animal that leaves home and then falls in love with this alley cat, or in that instance the
The
homeless
very similar
dog.
story, yeah.
So I think there's that comparison, and sort of the searching after being like trying to find home after being lost of 101 Dalmatians. So there really isn't any originality mind within this film. But regardless of that, I still did have a good time, I think.
I respect that, Callum, completely, buddy. And I mean, this is the first film of the decade of the 70s, so this is sort of new ground for us moving forward in the next episode as well. So, but yeah, like the opening of this film, so the French pastoral vibe and the city vibes, it sort of got very similar to Ratatouille in that sense. And the one thing about this film, I don't know if you got this or not, but I think the animation is severely derailed here. It's almost too detailed where it loses its fluidity for me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think it's the hand drawn nature of it. It's so exceptionally detailed, and that is a positive. Don't get me wrong. However, it just loses the animation. It just becomes moving images to me rather than a fluid transition from scene to scene. I don't know if you've got that, if you saw that as well, buddy, or not.
Yeah, I hadn't I suppose gone in that depth, looking at it. But I can sort of see that, because I mean, I would say some of the humans do look too realistic for hand drawn animation, especially. But then also, like the texture of the cats doesn't really come across. You can't really see fur or anything. So that sort of doesn't come across. But just to move into characters quickly,
Sure.
because I also have sort of quite minimalistic notes for this. I was just wondering. Obviously, the main antagonist of the film is the butler Edgar, and I
Yeah.
don't really understand why Edgar thinks he's entitled to anything, because he does run the day-to-day operations of the mansion, but in the end, he's just like Madam is just his employer, not his friend. So I don't really see why he thinks he's entitled to anything.
It's such a great point, buddy, and it's a very curious decision to make the house butler the villain of the film, and it's a very confusing plot. So nothing much happens. So Madame Adelaide says, "Oh no, I'm gonna inherit my will to the cats," and then Edgar is upset about that, so he decides to send them away to I think it's like Timbuktu by the end of the film or something. But yeah, no, I have to agree. He probably isn't entitled to anything, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he also went, oh, I need to get rid of the cats, or I need to kill the cats, or just make sure that they're not here, and didn't just think, okay, like let's see this play out, because obviously a judge is gonna like laugh her out of
Yes.
court. Like no judge is gonna go, oh yeah, leave it to the cats who have literally no concept of wealth. Yeah, let's go ahead with that.
It's a great point, man. It's a great point, and one thing about the characters in this film, when the Duchess and her kittens meet Thomas, I think it's Thomas O'Malley. It kind of reminded me of, well, his characterization kind of reminded me of the character of Rocky from Chicken Run. I don't know if you've seen Chicken Run, but it's very
I
similar. Like,
haven't.
no, but so yeah, the character in that is very like, he's a classic like Americans. Like I know in this character, like Thomas O'Malley's not necessarily American, but this sort of like an audacious like singing animal who's sort of like a cool ladies man who refers to them as honey and baby and stuff in a really weird way. So it kind of reminded me of that, and strange, like I really like Rocky in that film, but I really dislike Thomas in here. He just comes off as really creepy.
Oh no. He does come across as creepy, like within 6 hours he says that, like, he says to the Duchess, like, how much he loves her kids and how he wants to be their dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it came across very strong. I mean, obviously you have to consider the fact that, cats live, 15 years, so,
Sure.
or 15 years or less, they're living on, like,
He's on
a
an
fifth of the
accelerated time
time, so
scale.
things happen
Yeah.
5 times quicker.
Sure.
But still after 30 hours, you're not saying to a woman that you've been on like one date with, I mean, he hasn't even been on a date with her. He's just had like one life experience with her. You're not asking 30 hours in, can I be your kid's dad?
Yeah. Although to be fair, I think the character and the voice work as well. He has such great charisma, and especially in the singing as well. And yeah, he's a very like I can see why he would be likable in a sense as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because largely the film is mercifully unmusical, but the music that is there is heavily jazz influenced and
It's pretty
mostly
good.
done by Thomas O'Malley.
Yeah.
And the music that is there is very much to my taste, and I really enjoyed it.
Glad to hear, man. Glad to hear.
And once again, I enjoyed that this. What does that even say? Do you write in like sentences in your notes? Because like I write in
Not
sentences and
all
then
the
I
time.
like casually launch in as though I'm like just sharing a thought naturally, and then I have to stop halfway through to be like, what the fuck does that say?
Yeah, no, I'm the same, man. I'm the same. Like, do you handwrite your notes? Yeah.
I do, and it's a train wreck. I'll be honest.
I suppose that's good,
I
but
was
like,
basically just
it gets you used to
yeah. Go
writing
ahead, man.
again after school. My handwriting is really not that it was good beforehand, but it's really taking a damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna get worse now that we're just moving on to university, where we'll probably be taking notes with laptops. So like we will probably we will probably forget how to handwrite anything.
I
Yeah,
know.
I was just sort of saying that once again they do rob their own material. Sort of
Oh
going
yeah,
back to the
big
fact
time,
that
man.
that there's nothing original here really.
Yeah, there isn't. It's a very similar ending to both Lady and the Tramp and 101 Dalmatians, as you said, Callum. And it's weird because I think the film there's a lot of potential here, but for me it came across as very bland and boring, like you said, ripping off itself in many ways. But one thing I did quite like is when I think it's Thomas O'Malley like hits the windscreen of the milkman, and the milkman just shouts like "Sacre bleu!" I thought that was absolutely fantastic, smashing. But I feel sort of embarrassed because I don't actually have any more notes about this film.
No, me neither. But but like, sort of to say, just to build off of what you just said, they treat that milkman like absolute shit.
I know, I
They
know.
harass him, then they trespass, and then they steal his produce, and they're like, what a fucking wanker!
What
Like
a
when he
dick.
kicks them out.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's just doing his job.
I mean, they seem to have a strong cultural awareness and sort of a sense of conscience, but then as soon as they're like stealing shit, they're like, what a bloody dickhead.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. But yeah, like if you've got nothing else to say, buddy, I'd love to hear your reading for this one.
Yeah, so as we said, very obviously there's no new material here. There's nothing original. It is kind of bland, unnoteworthy. This isn't one that I would recommend to people because nothing really stands out. But, balance with that, in unnoteworthiness, that also means that there's nothing really wrong with it. There's just nothing good with it particularly. But I did quite enjoy the music within the film. The voice acting. The character's very charismatic. But aside from that, it is generic. But I would probably give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Fair enough, man. I thought that was fantastic. You made some great points in there as always, dude. And for me, it's a very nothing film. There's not necessarily anything bad about it for me. It's just it's so bland. And like you said, I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone who wants to see like the classic Disney films of the 70s or that sort of the time. So I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10 in a sense. That's quite a low review for my standards, but
No, because like it's always hilarious listening to Matthews. Because sometimes it's like, yeah, I didn't really love this film. It was kind of solid, 9 out of 10.
yeah.
And then you're like, kind of unnoteworthy, not good, not bad, 4. And then on like another review that you'll hear soon. It was just like, okay, I have to balance my enjoyment with the quality. It was this level of quality, this level of enjoyment. My enjoyment was high, quality was low. It's gonna balance out at a 4. And
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, my rating system doesn't make sense. I'll definitely look back at old podcast reviews and think, what the fuck was I doing rating that a
I
4 or a
mean,
10?
it's a feeling.
It
But
is,
yeah,
yeah.
since some of the movies that we've covered, like pretty much it's the new releases that have the most retroactive change in reviews. Because I mean, going back to Joker and Avengers
Mm.
Endgame, I'd obviously rate them much higher than I did, and I would imagine that you'd probably rate them marginally lower.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And do you think, Callum, when you watch a movie like on the podcast that you've just finished it the day before, the day of, do you think you have recency bias or do you think you have recency criticism?
Like it is rare that I like look back on a film and that my opinion like improves. It usually I look back and it lessens. But when it comes to Disney animations, I think I'm a relative realist. You know, I think I'll probably stay consistent with the views that I give on these Disney animated films. I guess just because they're so old, and you know, I sort of have a cultural awareness of them. You know, I sort of
Yeah.
had a level of expectation that was either, you know, met or not met. So I think that these are pretty accurate. But yeah,
Fair enough, man.
but,
Yeah.
you know, most of the films that we've talked about recently, you know, it's because we've been knocking films off our bucket list, so they're the first viewing. And I would say for the most part, I'm probably overly generous. Would you say you're the same?
I would say I'm the flip. I would say I'm definitely the same buddy, to be honest with you. I'm probably quite biased towards recently released films. Like I think there's times where like we've come out of the cinema together and recorded it as soon as we've got home, and like I've rated films like Dark Phoenix like a 9.5 out of 10. And don't get me wrong, that film was very good, and I really enjoyed that film. But looking back now, it's probably not a 9.5 out of 10 for me. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you'd probably agree. So yeah, like it's weird. Like we sort of, I remember I think we went to see Knives Out together, pal, and I
yeah,
think
we did.
at
Yeah,
the time I think I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I think, but now looking back, you know, I loved it. You know, I'd definitely give it a 10, but probably at the time probably give it like a 7 or an 8. So it's just interesting how it all works out, to be honest with you, man. And
yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that film one day. It's a classic modern mystery in many ways.
Yeah, because we sort of both agreed that it was so complex that to do like you know, a review of it as a new release would probably be difficult, because we sort of wanted
Yeah,
to go into explicit detail later when we could watch it, you know, and like pause it and consider and stuff.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's definitely a future one. You know, definitely for like maybe a whodunit, because I don't know if you've seen Clue,
I
but you
haven't
know,
seen it.
it's
No.
sort of it's famous for, you know, it's you know, based on Cluedo. So you know, it's
Awesome.
those
Yeah.
characters, you know, in a whodunit scenario, and it's very famous because it
Awesome.
had, you know, multiple potential endings. I don't know if you know that,
Oh, cool.
but
No,
like
I didn't
sort of,
know.
like each cinema that showed it showed a different ending. So there's 4 or 5 potential endings, and you know, certain
Awesome.
versions just like run through all of them as a sort of like, you know, potential ending, which I don't like at all, because then that means that you didn't really lay clues well enough for there to be a definitive ending. You know,
Yeah.
you like each character, you know, there was enough clues, you know, for it to be equally them, and I don't really think that's, you know, the
Mm,
strength of a whodunit. Like it either needs to be a big surprise or expected, and you know, if
yeah.
you have all suspects equally in suspicion, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, man, and that sort of reminds me, brother. You know, I think there was a Black Mirror original film on Netflix or something like that, where you decided well, the plot of the film
Mhm.
on your phone. Was that the case?
Yeah, you know, it was a choose your own adventure. So, you know, it would sort of every 5 or 10 minutes or so, you know, it would give you a choice between 2 decisions that a character could make, and then that
That
you
sounds
know,
cool.
fundamentally changed the storyline. Oh no, it's I hated it beyond belief, because you know, I sort of like I like a definitive storyline, and I don't
Yeah,
like,
sure.
you know, they sort of did this with Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, because you know, season 5 ended and it was the perfect ending to a TV show. Like I've never seen a TV show end so perfectly. It felt so right, and then obviously, you know, they just couldn't leave it alone, so they made an interactive special using
Oh
that same
no.
technology, which was a
Yeah,
choose your own adventure. But then I'm like, well then, like, what's the definitive ending? Like, was that just like a potential
yeah,
story,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, with potential outcomes, or is that a definitive continuation of the storyline? I don't take it as a definitive, you know, continuation. I just say it ended as it ended.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. But I suppose shall we wrap up the episode then, buddy?
Yeah, I don't think a future episode chat is necessary, because we'll be pumping out content so quickly. You
Yeah,
know,
and we've done
if
it
you
in the
pretty
start,
much
haven't we, as
just
well?
yeah, if you pretty much just look at the channel over the next couple of days, you should be seeing an outpouring of content.
Yeah, and if you're still listening to this point, we've created some new playlists for you guys as well. I think classic cinema and
Horror.
time travel and horror. Yes, so go check those out if you haven't seen any of those podcasts. There's a good few movies to talk about in there. But yeah, thank you very much, Callum, for introducing me to these another 4 Disney films today. Love talking about films with you on the podcast, brother, as always. And as always, you know, fantastic points made again from yourself. So yes, thank you, man. And yeah, thank you everyone very much for who's listened to this. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts on these films down below. We love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, email us at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, thank you everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Bye bye.